Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for DC Spotlight for the week of April 5th, 2022. I'm back from WonderCon. It was a good show in a lot of ways. Very tiring show in a lot of ways. First show back in quite a while. Getting back in the swing of things. Guest list was a little light. Press opportunities were a little light. Shopping was not light. Probably one of the better WonderCons for retail I've been to. So yeah, it was interesting. I'll show off real quick some of the stuff I got. I got this really cool Spawn Ninja cover. I got this Bloodstone one shot that I missed out on a few weeks ago. It's a good book. Picked up some Captain Americas to fill in my run. About 4 caps in the 290s.
Nice.
Final issue of Incredible Hulk, which somehow I missed on the stand back in the day. This is the first volume of Hulk. It's green, so you're kind of seeing the background through. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I picked up a Chicken Devil exclusive signed by Brian Buccellato. Booch was there.
Nice.
And I also got this Chicken Devil. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is.
Yeah. Oh, that chrome?
That is a metal cover. Aftershock was far and away the biggest and best publisher that was there. Wow. I also got a metal cover of The Dead Day. This is the same cover as #1, but metal.
Nice.
It's been optioned for TV shows. So those are real limited. I didn't get this at the show, but I took it with me. This is my Slots hardcover. Dan Panosian was there as well, so I got that signed.
Nice.
Same with this. Scotty Young was there, so I got my Middle West signed by him. Picked up 3 Action Comics for my Action Comics run.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then here's where it really gets crazy. Amazing Spider-Man 26. Amazing Spider-Man 27.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 38.
Wow.
Amazing Spider-Man 62.
I have a feeling your bank account may have felt that.
Amazing Spider-Man 88. And annual #2, Amazing Spider-Man. That's the Doctor Strange one.
Nice.
So yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
nice haul, man. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Good show.
Right on.
Anyway, we're back with a DC Spotlight. As I said, kind of a lighter week. 10 books, but one of them is the Earth Prime, which is supposedly the CW Earth. There's a Batwoman limited series that's kicking off. It says there's an editorial note right inside the front, like first page. It says it takes place like after, I don't know, season 3, episode 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
I've not seen not 1 second of the Batwoman TV show. So I didn't read this because I have no context.
Yeah, neither have I. So, I mean, I suppose in fairness, we could have read it, but I don't know. It's just, I just feel, I just don't, it's not my cup of tea. So
I'm right there with you. I don't watch the TV show stuff and I don't really have time, to be honest. So I don't know. I feel the same. Like I could have read it to see, hey, how is it, how accessible is it for people who haven't followed the TV show? But the other thing was I was at WonderCon all weekend. I didn't really have a lot of time to read comics. So there's also a reprint. It's Flashpoint Batman Night of Vengeance. And that reprints the 3-issue series that came out in 2011 during Flashpoint that basically tells the origin of the Thomas Wayne version of Batman. So if you're not familiar, if you didn't read it back in the day, you can go check that out as well. So overall, I thought it was a pretty solid week. I would go so far as to say there wasn't a bad book among them. Maybe an average book. One of them I would put as, maybe 2 of them I'd put as average. But the others I thought were all really, really great. So overall, strong week. What did you think, Rocky?
Yeah. I enjoyed. Well, I would say I enjoyed 3. You know what? I'm gonna slightly since it was 50-50, I'll slightly disagree with you. It was I still had my moments, but I was I was a solid 50-50 in terms of disappointed to being happy. So not quite on the year level, but it's still
Yeah,
there's enough
I
there
would
to keep me
say,
entertained. Yeah.
yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say Monkey Prince, One Star Squadron, and maybe World of Krypton didn't do it for you, and the others
Yeah.
were pretty good.
Uh, I actually didn't even mind Monkey Prince. I was very disappointed with with actually, well, we'll get to it with us. I was disappointed with Suicide Squad. And
Huh? Really?
yeah, I've that's lost its luster for me. I'm still pissed off about War for Earth 3, and Suicide Squad was just there's a whole slew of things that just still annoy me about that. But we'll get into it. But I loved Historia, and I'm sure you loved that too, and we'll be getting into that, I'm sure. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's kick it off with Batman Beyond Neo Year #1. This is the first time somebody besides Dan Jurgens has been writing the adventures of Terry McGinnis in quite a while. It's Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing who are writing partnership, and they've done some DC stuff before. I'm actually a pretty big fan of their work. Um, I would say the one thing, it's a minor nitpick. You It's not that you can't pick this up and read it and understand what's going on, but if you missed the Batman Beyond story that we got in Batman Urban Legends #7,
yeah,
you're not getting as much out of this as you would if you had read that. And there's even a note here saying, "See Batman Urban Legends #7, where Terry's last year ended." So yeah, in that issue, we saw the older Bruce Wayne die. We saw the city of Gotham itself become sentient, which is a big part of this story. And this takes some pretty big time jumps. So it finishes off not very long after the end of the events of that story in Batman Urban Legends #7. But then over the course of one page, we go from, and again, once Gotham becomes sentient, crime and the older Bruce Wayne is no longer with us, crime kind of goes haywire, and we're told through some dialogue boxes here, some expositional boxes about what's going on. And over the course of a page, there are some panels that go all the way across. First panel's day 1, then we jump to day 18, then we jump to day 37, then we jump to day 55. So it's like 2 months go by from the end of that story to really where Lansing and Kelly want to start telling their story. But I didn't mind it. It made sense for me. I liked this new villain they introduced, the Holographic Man. I thought was very, very interesting. Kind of like a Lex Luthor type, or a Lincoln March type, in terms of, somebody who has pull, not just physically, but also very intelligent, and also seen as sort of a pillar of society sort of thing, like a Lex Luthor. But then at the end, there's this other character that shows up that's sort of reminiscent of the Holographic Man in some ways, but he's disguised, and he has this sword that looks like it could be made out of hard light, like the Holographic Man.
yeah, and I think
Uh,
he's called the Sword. Is that his name, the Sword?
yeah, I mean, they didn't call him anything else, so that's what
Yeah,
I'm going on.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was dynamic. It was fast paced. I thought the characterization was interesting. Um, if there's anything in terms of characterization that's a little light in a way, we didn't get a lot of Terry's voice, like a lot of his personality. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't mind it because it's more they're developing, introducing the villains, introducing the kind of the conflict, introducing us to Gotham City as it is in its sentient form. And so I don't mind that they're setting that stuff up first before I think we're going to get a lot of Terry, because we do. Terry does give us some thoughts here. I swear, Bruce, I'll never stop fighting, but it's not any sort of it's all on the surface. There's no kind of deep dive into what he's feeling and kind of what his personality is. I mean, he's just the same old Terry McGinnis we've always known, because he seems older to me than that. Terry McGinnis, especially in the cartoon, always came across as a teenager to me. He seems significantly older here. But again, I'm not necessarily missing it at this point. because I think we'll get there. I trust these two writers to get us there. So I really enjoyed this, like more than I thought I would. I've never been a big Batman Beyond guy,
Yeah.
but I really enjoyed it. Plus the Max Dunbar art, the line work I thought was done really really well, and the colors by Sebastian Cheng, absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. A lot of blues, a lot of grays, which again sort of suits the world of Batman Beyond. I thought Chang nailed it. Aditya Bidikar on the letters. There's a lot of letters here, especially Holographic Man when he talks. When we see his kind of his logo and whatnot, um, Bidikar gets to kind of cut loose, so I enjoyed that as well. Yeah, I literally nothing wrong with this comic. It was fantastic. So, what did you think?
Well, I've never been a Batman Beyond fan, so I go in with that bias, and I'm like you. I'm pleasantly surprised. I did not enjoy at all the Batman Beyond, pardon me, the Batman Urban Legends story, and I think this is a legitimate criticism. The fact that people are going to have to go spend $10 to read this story that will explain to them, because they're going to be wondering where the hell is the older Bruce Wayne, because he's like a staple in Batman Beyond. He's the mentor to Terry McGinnis, the Batman Beyond, and all of a sudden they open up this comic book. Bruce Wayne's gone. He's dead. He's been killed, and the living sentient Gotham itself has become a living sentient sort of city that is slowly creating a flat line of crime and sort of manipulating events. It has its own agent called the Sword that you mentioned. This agent, Wayne Tech or Wayne Tower, I guess, it's now Wayne Powers. It's being taken over by this. You mentioned him, the Holographic Man, who goes by the name of Donovan Lumos. Uh, uh, but having said all that, it's interesting, and also it's quite clear to me that I was actually intrigued not only by the Holographic Man, which he kind of looks cool. He's very egocentric. He's narcissistic. He's like everything that. It's funny. The Holographic Man is Donovan Lumos. He's probably what Bruce Wayne's facade was, but minus the Batman. And of course, he controls Wayne Towers. But I like Barbara Gordon's role here. She's Commissioner Gordon. So when Commissioner Gordon makes an appearance, but of course it's Commissioner Barbara Gordon. And it's interesting that Terry McGinnis' Batman Beyond, he doesn't want to tell Commissioner Gordon about he doesn't want to tell anybody that Gotham City is actually a living sentient computer now. He doesn't want to tell Commissioner Barbara Gordon that, because she's retiring, and she actually thinks that the reason why the crime rate's gone down is because of all the hard work she's done. But the only reason the crime rate is flatlining is because of the efforts made by, ironically enough, the Sword and the sentient city of Gotham, essentially wiping out a lot of the people that would normally be part of the crime. For example, taking a lot of the drug addicts and killing off a lot of the drug addicts, or deliberately supplying drug addicts with drugs. Like there was like 8,000 of them, and the Gotham, the sentient form of Gotham, would determine that approximately 4,400 might die or something like that. And so it's that by getting rid of all the drug addicts, you're going to be eliminating the possibility that they might commit crime. So the crime rate's staying relatively flat. That makes that so it looks that Gotham, everything's okay in Gotham, but it's mostly because of those machinations behind the scenes of this living sentience of Gotham. And my prediction is, and I think this is probably well played by writers Danzig and pardon me, I dropped my piece of paper here. Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. I think that it's clear that Commissioner Barbara Gordon, she's going to retire from the force, and once she retires, she's going to come back as Oracle, and she's going to be the mentor figure replacing Bruce Wayne. So I think that's where this is headed. So I'm actually interested in this. This is actually well done, well written. I agree, and I agree with you. The coloring really stands out here. The coloring and the lettering, I give you kudos to Sebastian Chang on the colors, and Aditya Bidikar on the letters. Really great job, and Max Denbar on the art. So pretty good.
Yeah, again, Batman Beyond is not a series I normally collect, but I'm definitely going to be paying attention to this one. It was really good.
Yeah.
Okay, up next we have Batman Killing Time #2. I mean, I enjoyed this, but there are, I don't know if I want to call them problems. But well, I'll let you go first, but let me give the creative team real fast. Written by Tom King, art is by David Marquez, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Clayton Cowles. What did you think?
Well, I think that I think that Tom King, for me, and this is a problem that I have with Tom King whenever he writes Batman. I think that he has taken what should be a very simplistic linear story and he has complicated the crap out of it. I can't believe how he's complicated such a simple story. He jumps back and forth through multiple timelines here. He'll go through, he's juxtaposing this with some scene that took place 3,000 years ago involving the assassination of King Pentheus. And I think thematically he's trying to link that to this heist. He bragged about this being finally, this Killing Time was going to be a heist movie. There's a heist comic book where it's going to be action packed involving Batman, a bank being robbed, and something that Bruce Wayne owns that's very important to Batman. He's going to be after it, and he's going to be after Catwoman, the Penguin, and the Riddler, and Killer Croc, and in essence, it's that, but it almost plays like it's almost like I feel like I'm watching like a pretentious British heist movie where they jumble up all the timelines and you got to be an astute viewer in order to sort of catch on to what all the time jumps are in order to put the story together. And that's part of the challenge of the movie because it challenges the viewer because it jumbles up the timepieces. That's what this is to me. I got a little annoyed reading this because let me tell you something. I had to reread this 3 times and I can explain now in a linear fashion what happens in this issue. It's actually real quick. Selina Kyle, Catwoman, typical of how Tom King writes her, always likes to get drunk with the Joker. In Batman Catwoman's always drinking with the Joker. They get drunk around a Christmas tree. They get drunk everywhere. In this one, Catwoman, at some point in the past, she gets drunk with the Joker because she hangs out with the Joker from time to time. The Joker tells Selina about one time he captured Batman. He injected Batman with True Serum and asked Batman some questions, and Batman confessed or told him some of his secrets. And the Joker shared some of those secrets with Selina Kyle, and Selina told one of those secrets to the Riddler while they were inmates at Arkham Asylum. And they want to go steal this thing that the Joker told them about that he found out from Batman. And they put this heist together. They called it Penguin. Penguin was the money man. He funded the heist. He was betrayed by the Riddler. They beat Penguin up. Penguin's in the hospital. Killer Croc helped out. He robbed the bank. Killer Croc thought they were there robbing for money. Killer Croc took the money, gave it to his girlfriend, Vera. Vera buys a bunch of jewelry. Batman follows Vera, follows the breadcrumbs, interrogates Vera, figures out that Selina Kyle and Riddler are at this cabin out in the woods waiting for a buyer to come along. Who is the buyer? We don't know. That's how it ends. And of course, we get these scenes of Roman assassination 3,000 years ago, which thematically links to this heist tale. So, did a lot happen in this issue? Kind of, sort of. Do I think this could potentially be brilliant? Maybe. I'm intrigued because I took the time to read it and I like this a hell of a lot more than Batman Catwoman. It is challenging to me. I'm going to give it a little bit more time. I do feel that Tom King is a little bit pretentious in the way he's jumbling up these timelines, but I get it. If I took the time to read it, in fairness, I could make sense of what was happening, although it did challenge me. But hey, I got to be up for a challenge once in a while. And so I got mixed feelings right now. So the jury's still out, but I'm still along for the ride. My fingers are crossed. I like by far the majority of what Tom King writes. So I'm certainly going to stick this one out. I would love to be able to say that I love a Batman Catwoman heist story, and hopefully Killing Time is that. But right now I'm still on the fence. Oh, you're still on mute.
Oh, sorry. So your complaint is the same as mine.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily so in Batman Catwoman. Yeah, the timeline jumps around. There's no timestamps. At least in this one, the time jumps aren't as big, and he gives timestamps, so you can't go put things in order. But he came on the show and said, "I'm telling a straightforward story." He can't. I think he can't help himself. He cannot help himself. Tom, if you're listening, dude, it's okay to go point A, point B, point C, point D. Once in a while, once every 10 projects, you can go in order. Because I agree with you, Rocky. It's unnecessarily complicated. This is a good story.
Yeah.
You don't need to jumble it around. You really don't. I was at WonderCon obviously this last weekend. Like I said, I went to a panel that there's a bunch of creators on. One of them being Peter Laird, creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Scotty Young was on the panel. Becky Cloonan, Karina Bechko, a couple of others. And Laird was talking about this director who was struggling with this movie he'd written, this mystery movie, and it was so paint by the numbers he felt that it was really predictable, and he was struggling with how to make it better, and he accidentally dropped the script and the pages just scattered and went any which way, and so he picks them up out of order, and he decided, this is the order I'm going to shoot the film, in whatever random order I just picked up the script pages. And Laird said he used that in a comic at a later time. It feels like that's what Tom King's done. He's got his script, he threw it up in the air, and then he picked up the pages and goes, "Okay, this is the order the story's going to be in." Tom, trust yourself once in a while to just be able to tell. Like, again, you said this was going to be a fun heist, popcorn, all out action. So you don't need to make it more complicated just for the sake of making it complicated. I can't at this point see any reason, and maybe it'll change, but right now at this point, I can't see any reason not to tell this story in a straightforward linear fashion. We also didn't get any hints at all about what the mystery might be, what the item might be. But I do have a guess. I think that maybe what was in that safe deposit box was Martha Wayne's pearls.
All right.
That's my guess.
I guess it could, but is it when there's a scene where Selena Kyle is opening up what looks to be a box that would normally contain a ring? If it is pearls, it doesn't look like a necklace, but unless it's just one pearl or something. But
in issue 1, when the Riddler opens it, it's a much larger box.
Oh, so okay, fair enough.
It's just a guess. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I guess why is the box smaller now then? It's weird.
Maybe that's not the box. Maybe that's just something else Selena stole. Maybe they stole multiple items.
Oh, fair enough. Huh.
But I think the art by Marquez is fantastic. I think the color work is fantastic. I love the scripting. I love the choice of words, the vocabulary that King uses in the series. He's really becoming quite the master at setting tone with the kind of language he chooses. He did that very well in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So for the most part, I'm loving this. But I agree with Rocky that there's no reason that this can't be told straightforward A, B, C, D. But maybe Tom dropped his script. Who knows?
Yeah, and I'm still really curious about how this assassination of this King Pentheus, how this ties in with the storyline, and if it's tied into what was stolen. Because usually it really seems out of the blue. But you mentioned something interesting when you said that the problem with these time jumps sometimes is that just when we get a scene where I'm really excited to see what happens next, it jumps, and I lose the excitement created from one scene. And then I want to get back to that scene, and it doesn't really go back to it. It goes back to a slightly different scene. And there's a number of times where he'll jump to a scene that's 3 days before, and then the next scene will be a day before that scene, and then jump ahead. And then it just really seems just oddly disjointed. It doesn't. I was hoping this was. It's hard. I'm not sure how this can be at some point in an adrenaline rush of a heist or a chase issue of any kind. If we're constantly being, if time is constantly being, cut short and we're jumping all over the place, but we'll see. I mean, maybe in subsequent issues that will change. The pacing will change. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Up next, we have One Star Squadron. This is one that's, I don't want to say divisive, but we really kind of split on the last issue, which I thought it was improving, and you thought it was either staying the same or getting worse. Um, but I feel like it's continuing to improve, although it's no less depressing than it's always been. Anyway, this is issue number 5, penultimate issue. Things Lost in the Fire, written by Mark Russell. Steve Lieber is the artist. Dave Stewart on colors. Dave Sharp on letters. Um, a bit of a slower paced issue. All takes place basically in the course of one night, with a little bit of flashback. The Heroes for You headquarters has burned down. Turns out it was arson. And what we find out toward the end of the issue, it's not bad enough that it was destroyed. Gangbuster was in the building at the time and apparently has perished. So it's pretty harsh. Everybody assumes that it's Power Girl that did it because she just got fired, led to believe that she was going to be taking over for Red Tornado, but then come to find out the board of Heroes for You was just stringing her along and actually was trying to sell the company. And now that it's burned down, they're not going to bother to try to sell it anymore. They're just pocketing the insurance money. So all the heroes that work there are very distraught. And what we find out is that Minuteman was hired to do a grand opening, and that was all a front because Lex Luthor is there and he wants to pay Minuteman in both money and Miraclo pills to spy on the other heroes. And in that moment, Minuteman, with everything he's gone through, gives in to temptation and agrees, and then realizes, oh man, maybe I can stop this sale from happening if I burn down the headquarters. Not thinking that it's going to cause the whole deal to be called off. He's just trying to stop the agreement that he wants to back out of, basically. But yeah, inadvertently, he's responsible for the death of Gangbuster. So a lot of angst, a lot of bombshells in this one. I sort of think, maybe I'm being too optimistic considering it's Mark Russell. I got to think we're going to find out Gangbuster wasn't in because they didn't find a body. They just found his armor. It's my understanding. So I have a feeling he's not dead after all, but this is still a very, very bleak story. But it's also very real in a lot of ways, very grounded from Mark Russell. And he's saying a lot about the futility of being a superhero. So kind of interesting from that perspective. So the Steve Lieber art, I mean, Steve Lieber is a fantastic storyteller. And the style that he's using here is, again, very grounded, very real. There's a lot of emotions in this issue, most of them kind of negative and sad, but it's still a very emotional issue. So at the end of the day, one issue left. I don't know if I'm going to like this series the way it all wraps up. There's a part of me that thinks it's a series that, while at the end of the day, the quality of it, the craftsmanship of it might be quite high. It's not something I would ever go back and reread. But there's any number of movies that I feel the same way about, that are really good movies or, emotional movies or, have a big impact on the viewer. But it's so emotional. It's such an experience to go through it that, you choose not to go through it again, whether it's horror or something sad or emotional or what have you. So yeah, I thought this was all right. Very curious to see how it's going to end. What did you think?
Well, I think look, I've been, for the most part, I've been a Mark Russell fan. Although not all of his particular political parodic approaches to comics have resonated with me, but he has his particular type of writing style, as does Tom King. And the reason why I'm bringing up Tom King is that the next time somebody tells me that Tom King treats characters badly, I'm going to say, have you read Star Squadron? Just as a joke, because, I generally enjoy Tom King, and I generally enjoy, Russell has his moments as well. But I'm surprised, is anybody other than me going to be wondering what kind of hero was Red Tornado here? he gives an arsonist $50,000 and says, "Go ahead and go and hide." I mean, that's what he does in this issue. He finds out he finds out 1 Minute Man, started the fire, kills a man, manslaughter, doesn't do it on purpose, but feels sorry for him. So he goes into the safe, gives him $50,000 and said, go start a new life. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's not
I
what,
don't even know.
That's not heroic to me. That's not heroic to me at all. No. And I get it. That's maybe it was building that, but sorry, I have to make that point that if you're gonna, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. But anyway, go ahead, make your.
Yeah. That. Yeah, you're 100% right. I agree with you. I admit that I didn't think about that aspect of the story, but now that you pointed out, it's super obvious. And I would go so far. You called him an arsonist. He doesn't give $50,000 to an arsonist. He gives $50,000 to a murderer.
Well,
I mean, yeah. I know you're a lawyer or whatever.
Well, it's manslaughter. He didn't intend to kill him. He didn't know it. But I mean, you're guilty.
But just like when you use a gun,
certainly, yes,
and you kill somebody in the course of a robbery, it's still considered murder.
Agreed.
This guy with knowledge and knowledge and forethought set that place on fire. Yeah. Taking the gas there shows that he didn't just show up and decide, oh, I'm gonna burn this down on a whim. So yeah, the argument could be made that it's murder. I mean, I get we're talking semantics here, but yeah, he's worse than an arsonist. My point is he's worse than an arsonist. And you're right, Red Tornado. It's one thing to tell him to run, give him $50,000 and tell him to run.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, I mean, this is sort of in keeping with the plotting, depressing nature of this story. This is just a depressing story all around. I mean, Red Tornado he's resigned himself to the fact that Power Girl's going to get blamed for it. And he finally finds out who really did it. But he's going to let him get away, 1 Minute Man get away. But, probably they'll figure out 1 Minute Man ultimately did it. And Power Girl will be exonerated. And then, I guess, I don't know where the happy ending is going to be. I don't know what the point of this is. Like, this is just a relentlessly depressing tale. Was that the point of this? Is that this is so depressing? I think maybe you're right. Maybe Jose will be found to be Delgado will be found to be Gangbuster will be alive. Maybe that will raise some spirits at the end. So 1 Minute Man will be caught with $50,000, but Gangbuster will be alive, and he'll get, or 1 Minute Man will turn himself in probably to redeem himself, and maybe that it'll that'll happen or something. And I don't know, but it seems to me at least when Tom King. For example, when Tom King does what he did to Guy Gardner in Human Target, it's out of continuity, and it's a great story. Like it's a great story, and I can really enjoy it. And I don't really care about Guy Gardner, but at least even if I did care, at least it's in a really great story with fantastic art, and it's going somewhere. There's a mystery. I find with One Star Squadron, there's nothing to get excited about in this story. There's no mystery. What's this story really been about except Red Tornado being depressed and broke and a bad businessman? And this story has nothing to back it up when these moments happen. And it's not, it has its moments of humor, but not enough of them. So I don't know. I mean, and I would think that if there was ever an audience for something like this who knows these characters in the past, it's me and guys like you and me who are lifelong DC fans. And yet I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I don't know if I want this kind of depression in my comic books, but here we are reviewing it. So anyways, I'll stop ranting.
Yeah, you brought it. I kept meaning to ask you because you weren't able to join me on that episode with Guy Gardner getting killed. I kept meaning to ask you. I don't think you were ever able to put out your own episode on that.
Yeah, so. No. Yeah. Sorry, I did. But I had some technical problems. I didn't mind it at all. It didn't bother me at all. In fact, Tom King just recently tweeted about his tendency to do that, and he talked about out of continuity tales, and he basically, the long and the short of it is that he's just he writes them, and if they're out of continuity, if you don't like them, you can discard them, and if you like them, well, then maybe one day they'll become in continuity. I mean, who knows? But I think that's a healthy approach to it. It is Black Label, and that that story, I love that Human Target story. It doesn't bother me. I've never been a Guy Gardner fan anyway.
Yeah,
Don't
I
get me
thought it was
wrong, but
great.
yeah, I
It
did
was
too.
so
I loved it. I,
it was so unexpected. It
yeah,
was so unexpected. It came
yeah,
out of nowhere. I thought it was great. Yeah, that
yeah,
to me, that Human Target is the best book in the last 10 years. It's so good.
yeah. No,
It's
I
great.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't happen to a nicer
Anyway,
guy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's move on to the next book. It's Suicide Squad number 14. It's called Defunded, part number 1. Dennis Hopeless is the writer, so that's I don't want to say unfortunate, but man, it was so good when Robbie Thompson was writing it. So we'll see if we're still enjoying it as much with Dennis Hopeless. Eduardo Pansica and Julio Ferreira do the first half of the book, pages 1 through 11. Then Dexter Soy does the back half, 12 through 22. Jeremiah Skipper colors the Panseca Ferreira stuff. And so just so you know, so Eduardo Panseca does the pencils, and then Julio Ferreira does the inks. Jeremiah Skipper does the colors. Dexter Soy doesn't do pencils. He probably works digitally and goes, directly to digital inks. And then his stuff's colored by Peter Pantazis, and then Wes Abbott letters the whole thing. So,
Did you notice that Thompson is credited as the writer on the cover, on the A cover, and then on the B cover it has both Thompson and Hopeless, and then on the inside credits it only mentions Dennis Hopeless as the writer.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, there's a difference. So I don't know if you look at the inside credits, it just says Dennis Hopeless is the writer. It does not mention Robbie Thompson, even though Robbie Thompson is mentioned on the cover and both cover A and B. But Dennis Hopeless isn't mentioned on cover A. So
yeah, if I had to guess, I would say, Thompson was so involved. He's the one that brought them back. He's the one that wrote the Suicide Squad Future State stuff. So it's got to be at least coming from a co-plotting perspective, I would assume.
I think it's just, the irony is that I wonder if they identified the proper editor on this as well. There's just all these little hiccups with DC lately, but in any event, let's review this comic, of which I will vent a little bit about.
Yeah, go right ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm getting really frustrated with Ambush Bug. But he always makes a wonderful narrator, but he's starting to get a little bit annoying with me, annoying to me. But I wish they kind of take him off the playing field. But regardless, coming off, I wasn't a big fan of how War for Earth 3 ended. Amanda Waller has taken Earth 3 out of the multiverse, so Earth 3 is now its own multiverse, apparently called Earth 0 now. They called it at the end of War for Earth 3. Confusing, didn't make a lot of sense, but in any event, now Rick Flag comes back to, I guess, Earth Designate 0, and along with him comes Bloodsport, along with Bloodsport's hundreds of Bloodsport's brothers that were scattered throughout the multiverse. And because some deal he made with Amanda Waller, she would save all his brothers. But for some reason, which it's not clear to me, suddenly all his brothers were transported with Bloodsport on Earth 0. So now Bloodsport has all his brothers, all his different iterations from different areas in the multiverse, now live with him, now live with Bloodsport in his house. And none of them seem to care. None of them seem to mind. They seem to care more about whether or not there's enough coffee in the house and arguing about the bathroom. Then none of them are asking the type of questions you would think they would logically ask, like, why are we all here? How come all the people around me look the same? Like, it's just, this feels rushed, convoluted. This feels just messy. This story is called Defunded. Rick Flag now is running the squad, but he right away, just like Rick Flag nonsensically destroyed the Phantom Zone projector at the end of War for Earth 3, which made no sense because they needed it against Ultraman. Now he destroys once again. I mean, he destroys the mechanism that would have, that can control the bombs in their head. And he needs to they need something to do. And I get the strong sense that Dennis Hopeless here, or Robbie Thompson, co-writers, whatever the situation is, I feel this comic's directionless now. I really do. Talon ends up dying, so Culebra Talon ended up being killed in War for Earth 3, but his ghost followed them back to Earth 0. But he finally dissipates. So William Cobb now, the Talon, he's now officially, I guess, gone, because won't believe he can come back. And Rick Flag basically sends everyone on their own little sends Rick Flag on everyone on their own. They got their missions, and they all fail at their missions. So the 3 missions that they fail, they he sends Peacemaker and Ambush Bug to try to retrieve some extra clones of Connor Kent, and they only managed to obtain 1 clone. And they he sends that Rodriguez character to try to obtain some weapons cache, sort of a bunch of weapons, and she fails. He sends Mirrormaster and Celebra to steal the Mind Dancer gem from Moneymaker Mannheim, and they fail to do that. And so by the end of this issue, Rick Flag's Suicide Squad has completely failed, other than just obtaining another clone of Connor Kent, because they need to replace him, because they lost Connor, because Match, the old clone, is the new Superman of Earth 3 that is now no longer in the multiverse. And Bloodsport now is trying to get along with his 1,000 brothers that are living in the same house as him. And at the end, it's just decided that Rick Flag decides, well, we need money, so we need to get funded. We have no money. I don't even know if they work for the government anymore. And they have this master plan that they want to basically kidnap Lex Luthor. That's their master plan at the end. And this just feels directionless to me. It's funny because I was so excited about, I really thought this series started off so well. But I really thought they were headed somewhere, that they had a game plan. War for Earth 3, the way that ended, told me that they didn't have a clue what they were doing. That was a mess. And now, Rick Flag is a complete idiot. All of the Suicide Squad members, Bloodsport, Peacemaker in particular, tells Flag, at least Amanda Waller knew how to win. And it's true. But this feels like they're just making Rick Flag out to be an idiot. They're writing Rick Flag wrong. This is bad characterization. Rick Flag's not this stupid. He's not an idiot like he was portrayed in War for Earth 3, like he would actually destroy the Phantom Zone projector because he's mad at Amanda Waller, please. And now he's portrayed like an idiot in this particular issue coming back. I just want some more competency in these characters, and I don't know. This doesn't bode well. This doesn't bode well. This feels, everyone seems to be a joke here, and I don't even like what they did with Bloodsport with all his brothers. I'm not even sure what the point of that is. This feels directionless. It needs a game plan, and I'm not sure what the plot is anymore, and I'm not sure what the point is anymore. So I don't know. Do you have a better handle on this title, or I mean, you must have been happier with it than I am, I'm assuming.
I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. I thought it was great. Not least of which, there's only 1 page of Amanda Waller, not actual size. I'm not an Ambush Bug guy, but he's been so fun throughout as this kind of breath of fresh air, this levity. In defense, I'm going to actually defend Amanda Waller here for a second. So hold on to your hats, everybody. I think that as capable as Rick Flag is as a field general, he's not so great at running things behind the scenes. And that's sort of what makes this such a mess. And I think that's purposeful on the part of Hopeless and or Thompson. I don't know. I mean, I think for the most part they failed on their missions, but did you think that Peacemaker and Ambush Bug were stealing Lazarus resin?
No, they were stealing I thought they were stealing from the warehouse all the other clones of Connor Kent. That's the impression I got, because they were. I stand to be corrected on that. Maybe I misread the scene.
I don't know, maybe I did, but they said something along the lines of or Rick Flag said something along the lines that they have a plan and what they're stealing, is necessary. I thought that the Match clones were the guards of what they were, of the Lazarus resins, basically. So I thought they were stealing Lazarus.
No, Yeah, no, they were breaking the clones broke out of. They were stealing coffins. They were stealing the coffin canisters, and you could see in this scene here that I'm showing that the clones are breaking out of their containment vessels,
Oh, you're
right?
right. Yep.
Because they were loading them up on the truck. All those containers, those that contain the cloned aspects of
Yeah, you're right.
Connor Kennedy, but they were escaping. But they only end up with one, and because Ambush Bug Peacemaker kept telling Ambush Bug to teleport them away, get them out of here, but he kept one of them. So they managed to keep one of the clones for themselves, which I think is just a fancy way, a cheap way for the writers to replace Connor Kent that they lost in World War III.
Yeah,
But
you're right. You're
yeah,
right. So
but anyways,
but
I
there
mean,
was
it's not
something.
a, it's
Yeah, there was
again,
something. There was something that that Rick Flag said that made me think that they were trying to basically bring Talon and Calibra back to life. Um, so I guess we'll see. But yeah, I
yeah,
didn't. You mentioned Rick Flag breaking the thing that controls the bonds. I love that. Now they don't. Nobody has to stay there. They don't have to work together if they don't want to. There's no longer that leverage. So
yeah.
yeah, is it messy? Yeah, it's messy. But I think that's kind of the point. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I'm curious to see how this is going to go without Amanda Waller calling the shots. Though I guess in a lot of ways we know how it's going to go because the series has been canceled. Um, so yeah, but I think the series, even though this is Dennis Hopeless as a writer, we don't know how much Robbie Thompson is involved. I think it feels consistent with what the whole series has done. Interesting. It's almost like DC's choosing to do um, almost what you'd call standalone seasons for Suicide Squad, right? Like we just had the Tom Taylor one,
Mm,
which isn't really connected to this one at all, and now we've got this one. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Well, much like Justice League, we're probably not going to get another Suicide Squad series until Dark Crisis is over. So we'll see how that plays out in the long run. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I will say that much like I always say, I wish either Dexter Soy or Eduardo Penseca did all the line art because again, their style is just not that close together for them to be sharing a book. So anyway, let's move on. World of Krypton #5. This is the next to last issue of this episode, written by Robert Venditti, drawn by Michael Avon Oming, Nick Filardi on colors, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. I'll talk about the art first. There's a few times, for the first time on this series, there's a few times where Avon Oming's art kind of bugged me. It pulled me out of the story a little bit. So I don't know if he's rushed or something else is going on, but his storytelling is as strong as ever. The guy's always been a fantastic storyteller. But there's a scene where Kara Zor-El walks into her father's laboratory and he's still trying to find a survivor zone, someplace they can send the Kryptonians that's not the Phantom Zone. And I, I don't even know how to describe it. She looks like an old school bobblehead almost. Like her head is
Yeah.
way out of proportion to her body, and her face looks like a middle aged person. And it like I said, I was reading it and I had to stop and like, whoa, what happened there? So not sure what happened, but yeah, the art in this one is not quite as sharp as it's been throughout the series. Um, that being said, it's the story of Krypton. We know how it ends. It's like reading a story about the Titanic. The boat's going to sink. We know Krypton's going to explode. But what Venditti does a great job of is providing context and angst, and particularly context, and really maybe the most sort of human and relatable situation for the falling out between Jor-El and General Zod. So I appreciate that he's bringing that to the table.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, overall, this is a pretty solid series. We've talked about it before. World of Krypton for a new generation. This isn't going to replace the classic John Byrne written Mike Mignola World of Krypton for me, and that's only because of when I read it. I read that story when I was like 12 or 13. So to me, that'll always be the kind of the defining way that I think about Krypton. Plus that series was brilliant in that each of the issues was kind of a standalone, and then you jumped forward hundreds, if not thousands of years sometimes, so it covered a much longer timeline. This one's a little more intimate and smaller in scope, but again, it's dealing more with the emotions between the House of El and the House of Zod, and I think it's doing that quite well. So, what do you think, Rocky?
I thought it was okay. I think it focuses too much on the world of on the House of Zod, to be honest. Now I say that knowing fully I'm aware that the House of Zod is very important in the ultimately in the story of the ultimate destruction of Krypton. But I thought that was kind of fairly obvious and overplayed. I would have liked to have seen more focus on Kara, a little bit more on the rest of Kryptonian life. It's issue 5 of 6, and we haven't even seen Brainiac appear to take the bottle city of Kandor. So that maybe that'll happen in the last issue, in the final issue. A couple of things that stand out here is I want to emphasize the difference, what Robert Venditti is doing differently here, and I wrote this down. Jor-El confirms to Laura that he's known for 6 months that Krypton is going to be destroyed. This issue is called Past the Point, meaning, of course, past the point of no return. Krypton will be destroyed. He's known for 6 months, and Jor-El has told nobody. Nobody. Are you kidding me? Instead, Jor-El has focused on his anger with Zod. Zod is focused on being angry with Jor-El. They're blaming each other, and ultimately, these two men are flawed, and they both have, unfortunately, I actually think the way I'm reading this story is that both Jor-El and Zod, at least through the eyes of Laura, they are angry with each other, and they're not putting aside their anger toward each other. They're not putting that aside for the betterment of Krypton. Shame on Jor-El not saying anything for 6 months. What was he doing? I'm sure he had maybe a motive. He could tell himself all he wants. He had a motive of not telling the people because he didn't want to cause more strife, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Zod is literally sending tens of thousands. We don't know how many, but at one point in time at the beginning of this issue, he mentions potentially apprehending 18,000 ordinary citizens that just happen to be, I mean, they're literally protesting, holding up signs saying, "Let us live," for God's sakes. And he transports them to the Phantom Zone. Meanwhile, Jor-El's brother, is trying to look for a survival zone because the Phantom Zone is too crazy. The Phantom Zone makes people go a little bit nuts and insane. At least it did in the first issue. Jor-El wants to find a survival zone, but I'm thinking, look, put him in the Phantom Zone anyway? Wouldn't you rather go to the Phantom Zone than face utter destruction? And Jor-El's known of the Phantom Zone for 6 months. Obviously, he's known that he's known for 6 months that Krypton's going to die, and they had 6 months of wasted time here. You really see the tragedy of all this, that for 6 months, Jor-El knew all this and didn't do anything. I'm actually found myself angry at Jor-El. And of course, Zod I'm angry at for just being I don't know what Zod's hoping to accomplish, arresting everybody. And anyway, he's not, in my view, Zod is ironically enough doing the best thing. He's sending people into the zone where they're going to be protected from the destruction of Krypton. So what if they go a little bit insane? They can heal once they're released. I mean, unless Robert Venditti is changing the rules of the Phantom Zone, being in the Phantom Zone isn't that bad, is it? Or is he trying to make it worse than what it's been established in the past? I mean, Mono of the Legion of Superheroes spent thousands of years in the Phantom Zone, 1,000 years, and he came out okay. So I don't know here. Another thing here is I think Robert Venditti is giving Laura, Jor-El's wife, more agency here because at the end of this issue, it is Laura that begins looking to the stars for a home for their unborn son. It's Laura that looks for Earth, not Jor-El. Because in previous incarnations, it was Jor-El that looked up to the stars to find a home for young Kal-El. But in this case, I think it's Laura. So I like that Robert Venditti is giving more agency to Laura herself, because Laura's always been more passive. Even in all the movies, Laura's always been sort of passive and sort of like the good wife of Jor-El. Here she's got more agency, she's got more action, she has a little bit more, I think, to say in this story. And in many ways, I think she's more level-headed than Jor-El and Zod. And she's the conscience of Krypton itself, and which really helps to heighten the tragedy of the ultimate destruction. But overall, I'm actually uh, I'm a little bit. Anyways, I'm happy with it. I'm frustrated with Jor-El and Zod, but in a way that magnifies the tragedy of the story of Krypton. And it's going to be interesting to see if this becomes the new canon, because I think that there's some significant distinctions here and differences in the history of Krypton that could be significant if relied upon farther down the road.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay. Up next, and I will say that I I got to talk to Gene Luen Yang at WonderCon, and that was a lot of fun. He's really excited about the Monkey Print series that he's doing with Bernard Chang. Bernard Chang was there also, and I went by his table a couple times to say hi because I Bernard's been on. I know him. Every time I went to his table, he wasn't there. So bummed out I didn't get a chance to say hi. But anyway, Monkey Prints are up to issue number 3 of this limited series, written by Gene Luen Yang. Bernard Chang is the artist. Sebastian Chang does the colors. Janice Chang is the letterer. This is getting better and better. When I talked to Gene, one of the things that I expressed to him was how it's kind of fun to be exposed to the myths and the lore of different cultures. I know nothing about Chinese. Not to say that you could learn a ton from this, but there's a little bit you can learn a little bit. Monkey Prince isn't like some original idea. It's drawing on a lot of the mythology that exists in Chinese culture and throughout Chinese history. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying how they tie that in with the Penguin, how they tie it in with Batman. Marcus is a fun character, as much as he's kind of struggling to get a handle on his powers. His parents are kind of fun comic relief. I think the art by Bernard is some of the best work he's done in a long time. Plus, I really appreciate the color work of Sebastian Chang. Here we are again, praising Sebastian Chang's color work. Really bright, vibrant colors in this one, which helps to sell it as this traditional superhero comic with kind of a youthful, zany feel. So I wasn't sure what to think of this when I first started reading it with the first issue. But it's one of those comics where it's a good example that just reading one issue doesn't give you a inaccurate feel for the book. You got to read at least 2, if not 3, because especially first issues, are so hard to write. So having given this a couple of issues, I'm having a lot of fun with it. So one thing I would say, if this were to become an ongoing, or if they were to have another volume, I would like to see Monkey Prince outside of Gotham, only because it feels like having Batman here is a little bit of a crutch. Not for the writers, but more like from an editorial standpoint. Like, man, we're worried no one's going to buy Monkey Prince. I know, we'll throw Batman in there. Look, he'll even be on the cover of issue 3, so we can get people to try it. I get it, Batman sells. Monkey Prince probably on his own wouldn't necessarily. So throw in a crossover, but hopefully, like I said, if it does sell well, why not take him out of the shadow of Batman, take him out of Gotham? So what did you think, Rocky?
I enjoyed it. This is absolutely the best issue so far. I wasn't really on board for the first 2 issues. I had a hard time accepting the fact that this Monkey Prince is a character that people are gonna like. I actually thought the character was a little bit poorly conceived, to be honest, and then everybody keeps telling me it was just sheer by majority force. I feel like the kid pressured in. It's like everyone's telling me, no, this is exactly, this is a mythology from another culture, and so I just, from sheer osmosis of everybody saying, no, you should like this, and you should like this, I'm giving it a chance. Finally, this issue, things started to come together a lot more. This issue had everything. It had action. It had romance. It had humor. It was finally he's learning his powers. He has a confrontation with Robin, and he confronts his bully. And the sister of the guy who's bullying him at school is the girl that he has a crush on, and ultimately she ends up having a crush on him. This is all in one issue, and the Penguin itself, his parents, who are actually criminals, I mean, the Monkey Prince's parents are criminals who work for the Penguin. The Penguin ends up being the Gold Horn King. That gold creature that the Penguin turned into ended up being the Gold Horn King, which is he's the Gold Horn King. Apparently, in the mythology of the Monkey Prince, is the enemy, one of the enemies that the Monkey Prince was ultimately given powers to combat, to fight. And it's also revealed that other young men have become monkey princes as well. It's hinted at here in this Pigsy character by the Pigsy mentor character, whose name I can't remember. But in any event, I'm starting to get behind it now. I'm starting to understand the hue. I mean, understand it. I mean, it's fun. It's not something I was used to, and it just goes to show you that you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad. I'm glad because I straight up, full confession, I would not have picked this up. It's only because I'm reviewing it with you that I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did. This was an enjoyable issue. This was actually, I quite enjoyed this. I ended up reading it a number of times. It was actually enjoyable, and if this is, it's a limited series, I guess. I don't know. Is this 6 issues long? It doesn't really say. It says limited series,
Yeah, it
but
doesn't say. I think it's 6 issues, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah. But I really like the fact that his parents are criminals. I really like that. That is a pretty cool angle on it. I mean, a hero whose parents work for the Penguin or who have worked for different members of Batman's Rogues Gallery. I think that's an interesting way to actually pull the mythology of the Monkey Prince into Gotham, while at the same time keeping Batman out of it. I kind of like the fact that they just used Damian in this issue just sporadically. He sort of popped up, and even Damian had a sense of humor in this issue, and I thought it was very well done. And the colors just pop off the page. It was well drawn, enjoyable to read, and yeah, well written. Full props.
Yep, agreed. Okay, up next we have Batman number 122. And there's actually a backup in this one as well, which I thought was interesting. And I also wasn't sure. I couldn't remember what issues Chip Zdarsky was supposed to start on, but it's not there yet. This is a tie into Shadow War, so it makes sense that this is still written by Joshua Williamson. The backup is written by Joshua Williamson as well. The art in the backup's by Trevor Hairsine. Colors are by Rain Barreto. Letters are by, excuse me, by Willie Schubert. But the main story is by the same artist that typically does the Deathstroke Incorporated. We have Howard Porter on the art, Tomeo Morey on colors, and Clayton Cowell on letters. Now, for me, this is just a personal thing. Howard Porter's line work is a little heavy-handed when it comes to Batman. I typically like my Batman art to be a little more free-flowing, just because he's a character that relies so much on movement. And when you get those big, thick, heavy lines, it doesn't convey, in my mind, a sense of movement. But again, this ties into Shadow War. In a way, not a lot happens here. It feels like a little bit more setup. We do see Talia and Bruce have a kind of a heart-to-heart. Bruce thinks that Talia is behind the assassination of Ra's, and Talia seems to convince Bruce that that's not the case. My theory when I reviewed Shadow War Alpha was that Ra's himself was behind it, but I guess we'll see. We still don't know who the Deathstroke clone is at this point. But we do get to see a little bit more of the real Slade and Respawn, who, again, Rocky, you didn't get to be here when it was revealed that Respawn is basically a genetic clone of both Deathstroke himself and Damian Wayne. And so it kind of leans back into that story that Christopher Priest wrote oh so long ago, when somebody was trying to trick Batman into thinking that Damian was Slade Wilson's son rather than Bruce Wayne's son. So again, it opens up a ton of story. And when we had Christopher Priest on the show a few months ago, he even said he really fought for that, because he felt like having Damian Wayne be the biological son of Deathstroke opened up so many interesting storylines. Doesn't mean that he still wouldn't be like emotionally the son of Bruce Wayne after everything they'd gone through. but biologically, if he was Slade's son. So in a way, that's what we're getting here with this Respawn character. So, like I said, a lot of setup. Batman's clearly investigating the death of Ra's. Um, this is a relatively short crossover. It's only 5 issues, so we'll see how that all plays out. But again, it was an enjoyable issue, a little bit on the setup side, and I guess we'll see how Shadow War continues to play out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it felt like a setup issue. Uh, what I really liked about it though was just how action packed it was. It felt like it moved quickly, but it felt like a story was being told. I was excited for it. I love the fact that Batman's investigating. I mean, you can imagine. I mean, Batman is pissed off. I mean, how could Ra's al Ghul was killed on Batman's watch? I mean, Wayne Tech Satellite was looking over the entire thing, according to Batman, and somehow, whoever killed him, presumably he believes at the time Deathstroke, uh, but somehow they got through all the defenses that were set up in order to prevent the very assassination that they that ended up happening. But somehow Deathstroke got through. Deathstroke, of course, we all know from, because those of us, chances are, if you're reading out Shadow War here, Alpha War, you're reading. If you're reading Shadow War, you're reading all the DC books by Joshua Williamson. You've probably read Robin. You're reading Robin. You're reading Deathstroke Incorporated. Those of us who are, we're all the better for it, because we know that Deathstroke, Slade Wilson, he's tied up with his own secret society of supervillains. He knows that the Great Darkness is coming. He's got his own machinations that he's working on. He had nothing to do with the death of Ra's al Ghul. And so he is absolutely shocked when all of a sudden Talia's Leviathan forces are attacking him. So he's not expecting this. The Secret Society of Supervillains, they're not expecting this. And unfortunately, I mean, they're very, very powerful. One of the things that Joshua Williamson did at the end of Shadow War Alpha is that he showed all of Talia's forces, and there's a lot of these like C and D list characters from the Talia's past, from Batman's past, that I didn't really know the name of. They on one of the final pages of the opening issue of this of Batman Shadow War Alpha, it shows all the forces that Talia is using, that she sends against Deathstroke here and the Secret Society and the Society of Supervillains, and you really see what they're up against. And this is quite exciting. Now, it's interesting that what Talia says. Talia is actually wounded. Talia was wounded by whoever shot Ra's al Ghul also shot Talia, but Batman is smart enough to know that Deathstroke doesn't miss, because Batman talked about 7 seconds being between when Ra's al Ghul was shot and Talia. There's no way Deathstroke would have missed Talia, so Batman already has perhaps doubts that Slade had anything to do with it. And he basically, he's at some point he's going to convey that to Talia. Talia is wounded. Batman is wondering, why aren't you using the Lazarus Pit? Why are you wounded? Of course, Talia doesn't tell Batman this yet, but we know that the Lazarus Pit is poison. There's something wrong with it. It's one of the reasons why Ra's al Ghul was dying, and why in his dying he knew that he couldn't resurrect or heal himself with the Lazarus Pit anymore. It was too dangerous to use. So we know that the Lazarus Pit is compromised. We also know that Lazarus Resin is being used from multiple places in the Suicide Squad, and has been used by different forces around the DC universe, Task Force C. You got to wonder, how are all these things linked? What is actually going on? Who's the ones really behind the scenes? Who really killed Ra's al Ghul? You hinted that maybe Ra's al Ghul is still alive and it's all part of some elaborate hoax. We'll have to see. It's a hell of a hoax if he's doing that. It's even Batman asked that question. But in any event, it's interesting here. This ends with Batman kissing Talia, which is nice to see. I mean, Batman, it wouldn't be Batman if he didn't get a little tail on the side. I mean, I'm sure he's got to do something to piss off Selina. But why not? Selina's routinely drinks with the Joker. And if she does that, why can't Batman go and have some intimacy with Talia? But I digress. I enjoyed this. A good adrenaline rush. I wish more people were checking out Shadow War. I hope they are, because I think it's well worth the read.
Yeah, it's fantastic. As far as the backup, not that much to it. Basically, it's set in the early days of Dick Grayson joining Batman as a sidekick. Somebody's put out a hit on Robin, and Slade has taken the contract and gotten a ton of money. So okay, the hint, the implication is it's the Joker that's put out the hit. Don't with only 8 pages, the first part of the story, it's hard to see what the point of it is or if it's going to be any good. So your mileage
Yeah.
may vary. Anything to add about the backup, Rocky?
Well, I'm wondering if it's somehow going to thematically or some story-wise tie into the main narrative. Batman and Slade Wilson have a long history together, both as enemies and at times as allies against various forces. And so I suspect that that history is what we're being reminded of here in this backup feature, because it should be noted that the backup feature itself is also written by Joshua Williamson. So I can't help but think that there must be a purpose for that, and that I'm sure it's going to tie in and help explain some plot points, because at some point you know that Batman is going to realize that Deathstroke is not the one who did this, and probably his manner of figuring that out is going to have to do with his knowledge of who Slade Wilson was in the past. That might play a role in that might play itself out in this backup. So, but I like the backup, and I really like the art by Trevor Hairsine. I thought it was really good, and I like the dialogue. It was well written, and as you said, it does appear that maybe it was the Joker. Whether it's going to be Deathstroke versus the Joker in the next backup. So it's interesting. I trust in Joshua Williamson. He's the one staple at DC right now. He seems to be firing on all cylinders. So fingers crossed. I think this Shadow War is getting better and better.
Man, trust in Joshua Williamson.
Yeah.
How far we've come from the days of Williamson's Flash and Tom King's Batman.
That's exactly right. God forbid.
Either one of their work. All right, on to the last book. Maybe we've saved the best for last here. Certainly, we waited a long time for this first issue of this book to drop. Now we have issue 2 dropping. It's Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons. Kelly Sue DeConnick is the writer. Gene Ha is the artist. Wesley Wong handles the colors. Clayton Cowell on letters. Wow. What'd you think?
I really enjoy this. There's once again, like I will say this, unlike the first issue, there's this issue I thought was a little bit this was a little easier to digest. I loved the first issue. I loved it. What I mean is that the first issue I had to reread it, and I wanted to, and I enjoyed it because there was so much to digest, and I know nothing against Gene Ha and the art here, but the first issue had art that sort of like had a level of detail that just blew me away. And between the art and the exposition in that opening chapter, that opening volume, it really captivated me. Here we're dealing with the story continues, and this is really the origin. This is how the Amazons are formed. This is Hippolyta, who has sort of escaped her captors. This is the story of how the Amazons came to be, and Athena, and the story here, it's so masterfully told, because these 6 tribes of Amazons that were created by the goddesses out of their resentment of Zeus, and the fact that Zeus created that mankind was really about that it gave too much agency to men and not enough protection and reverence and the same type of agency or equality of opportunity even to the women, and in any event, that's how the goddesses perceived it, and so they created the 6 tribes of the Amazons. But in the meanwhile, the mortals, the 6 tribes of Amazons are immortal, but females, women who make up the earth, that are mortals, they're not Amazons because they're mortals. And so this is the story of the first Amazons, and of course the first Amazon would be Hippolyta. And how did Hippolyta meet the Amazons? How did Hippolyta, she that entire story is what plays out here. And she meets ultimately Artemis, the goddess Artemis, approaches Hippolyta, and Hippolyta has a wish. She wants to be an Amazon, and that's her. And she makes that wish, and she makes that wish to Artemis herself. And Artemis tells her, "Well, you know, you can make that wish, but it's a wacky kind of alchemy in order to become an Amazon." And so Artemis essentially gives Hippolyta Antiope's horse and sends her off to where she knows these human traffickers, these slavers will be. And Hippolyta ends up meeting Antiope after witnessing the Amazons kill these slavers, these slave traders, and then the story branches out from there, and it's beautifully told. And how this story of all these Hippolyta and all the as they begin to accumulate and save more women, Hippolyta says to Antiope, "I want to be an Amazon, and I want to follow you, because once the slavers are killed, you know, Antiope and the rest of the Amazons are going to leave." And Hippolyta is saying, "Look, you can't go. I want to come with you. I want to be an Amazon." And she's saying, "I'm not a, you know, I'm not a shepherd." And Antiope says, "You know, I'm not your shepherd." And then Hippolyta says, "Well, I'm not a sheep. You know, I mean, you're going to leave us here. I mean, you have the sanctity and the safety of wherever it is you go, and you're going to leave us here. Where's our safety? Where's our protection?" And the way that the manner of which that story is told, especially when we know that the backdrop is this war, or this conflict between Hera and Zeus, that ultimately Zeus becomes aware of at the end of the issue through Apollo and one of the worshippers of Apollo. When you know that that's in the background here, these Amazons always move at night. And the reason why the Amazons always attack and protect the women and attack the men at night is because during the daytime, that's Apollo. Apollo controls the daytime. And Apollo, of course, is one of the male gods who's as chauvinistic as Zeus is. And they want to hide their doings as much as possible from Zeus. And they know it's inevitable they're going to be found, but that's what they do. Ultimately, what they are doing is discovered, and Artemis, ultimately Artemis intentionally ends up killing a young boy, even though the Amazons let a young boy live, even though the young boy was trained to be would grow up likely to be probably an evil man or a very ne'er-do-well individual. The fact is that, you know, Philippus and the Amazons had the wherewithal to not kill children, and that children might be influenced by men, but, you know, maybe when they get older, we'll put the sword to them, but they deserve a chance to become better. And so the Amazons show mercy, they show compassion, they show kindness. But ultimately, Artemis is the one Amazon who ultimately decides to take action herself, and I think as an act to intentionally antagonize and get the attention of Zeus, she ends up killing this young boy, intentionally get Apollo's attention, who lets Zeus know. And so this issue ends with Zeus, you know, basically declaring war on the Amazons. You know, he's going to unleash hell upon them. And the real question is, is it possible for these Amazons to now coexist on Earth? Because Hippolyta forms a 7th tribe of Amazons, worshipping all of the other goddesses of the 6 tribes. And the 7th tribe of Amazons, Hippolyta is appointed the queen by consensus, not by combat, not by cunning, not by intellect, but by consensus, I guess, democratically voted for by the rest of the other women in that would ultimately make up her 7th tribe of Amazons. So much to unpack here, so much that we can talk about. Art's fantastic. Gene Ha does a fantastic job. Absolutely beautiful. It sets the tone for the story it wants to tell. I think it complements Phil Jimenez's art nice. It's not quite as I mean, to me it's almost, they're just different artistic styles. Phil Jimenez would probably be my first choice, but this is really Gene Ha at his best. I actually have an original print. I have an original a piece of art from Gene Ha that I actually won an auction for at a Comic Con of an Aboriginal of an Indian sitting on a rock reading a comic book. It's absolutely beautiful. I won an auction at the Calgary Comic Con back in 2008 at the beginning of Gene Ha's when he was much younger then. But in any event, uh, I love this. So much to unpack. We could easily do a separate video on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it also. I was just looking through it now. Are you sure it's Artemis that kills the boy? I thought it was Tarpia
Uh,
because she has the horns on, right?
that's not
Maybe
Tarpia.
not.
That's Artemis. The one with horns?
Yeah, I thought the one with horns was Tarpia.
No, Tarpia. No, Tarpia is the. Uh, Tarpia is the girl that was going to kill the boy, but Philippus stopped her. I can show you that.
Okay. I mm,
Yeah,
no,
right
I mean
there.
when you see the axe about to fall,
It says, "Stay your
yeah,
hand,
it's
Amazon."
right. And she has the horns on her head, right? Isn't that
Oh,
Artemis? I mean, isn't that Tarpia?
that is Tarpia. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, just a minute here. So
Yeah, and then
Tarpia. Then at the end, is that Tarpia? Okay, yeah, you might be right. I
yeah.
stand corrected there. Um,
Okay. Okay, I thought I missed something.
wait,
Yeah,
is that so?
yeah, interesting way to bring the conflict back around. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, the reason I make that distinction that it wasn't Artemis is because again, you're talking about the folly of humans, right? I won't say the folly of man, but because this is a woman that makes the choice. The gods are smart enough to, like you were talking about, remain hidden, only go out at night, all that sort of thing, and then it's the folly of a human to kill this boy while the boy's praying to Apollo that eventually is going to lead to the conflict. So I really enjoyed that.
yeah,
The other thing about the book, because I agree with a lot of what you said in terms of the scope and all that. And this really is the origin of the tribes, and we get all that information, which I think is fantastic. But if the first one with the incredible art from Phil Jimenez felt big and epic in scope, this one is more about kind of narrowing down the story in a lot of ways and focusing it down to what are the repercussions of the choices that the female gods made in the first volume. What are those real world repercussions as it pertains to human women? So you're talking about taking these big ideas that still are very personal. I mean, these female gods were fired up. They had to have been to take the risk to go against Zeus, to make the choices they made, to do what they did in the first issue and establish these tribes. But what does that mean in the real world? What does that mean when we're talking about women who are being enslaved or being exploited, being trafficked as property? So it goes from this big idea with sort of these abstract concepts from these very powerful beings all the way down to a much more intimate story where we're talking about real world consequences. These women, as you said, the Hippolyta becomes the leader of their tribe, and they keep repeatedly saving more and more women from these slavers. And okay, where are we going to be safe? How can we remain hidden? These are practical problems that are arising from the choices that these goddesses have made to defy Zeus. And where do they go? How do they sustain them? How do they feed themselves? Um, how can they keep going as tribes? There's that conversation between Hippolyta and the goddesses about, yes, we will worship you, we will devote ourselves to you. And the goddesses are like, yeah, but you're mortal. Like, yeah, we are mortal, but whatever amount of life we have, we will, you know, devote it to worshiping you. So I'm sure that's where the idea of them becoming immortal is going to come in. So, uh, interesting place to end it, because it is sort of right as things are ratcheting up in terms of conflict in a lot of ways. So we'll see how that plays out in book 3, where Nicholas Scott does the art, which, oh my God, I can't wait to see. Um, Also, if DC doesn't greenlight, more issues of this, then they're just that's just ridiculous. I mean, how
Yeah,
can you not? I mean,
yeah, she has a
yeah,
nine volumes is planned if they
right.
approve it. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So they better they better approve some more. And as far as Gene Ha's art, it sort of echoes what I'm talking about with the narrative. How we got these beautiful flowing images with all this detail from Phil Jimenez that felt very ethereal and otherworldly, especially with the way the colors were in the first issue. And now with this one, with Gene Ha, it's more grounded. It's more sort of based in reality. We're seeing again the narrative consequences of the choices the goddesses have made and how they're choosing to guide human women. But we're also seeing that in terms of the tone of the art, how this art is much more realistic, much more grounded. You get a lot more emotion. There's a lot of character in the faces of these women that are being rescued from the slavers. Hippolyta, especially, is very emotive. So, yeah, I don't think it's a stretch.
There's a phrase here, or pardon me, there's an image here that I'm showing, where Gene Ha has drawn trees on top of a mountain, and it looks like a woman's face, doesn't it?
He
You
does
see that?
that multiple times. I was going to point
It's
that out next.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Uh,
Sorry about that. I didn't
yeah,
mean to. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So I was going to say that there's no doubt in my mind that this is Gene Ha's best work that he's ever done, and it's not really close. So yeah, I was going to point that out, that there are several times where in the course of the foliage that he draws, there are faces. There's the page that you are pointing out, and then there's another one. Trying to find the page. I think it's later when Hippolyta is talking about um, where they're going to stay and all that sort of thing. Um, Again, it's much later. Let me find the page. There's no page numbers, but yeah, it's when they were talking about what they're trying to be, and the one they've just rescued the women from the slavers, and the boy has been spared. So the page where Philippus stops her,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the following page and look at the bottom panel,
Well, boys.
keep going. Yeah, go to the following page. Now the bottom panel there. Oh, too far. Go back up one page. See the bottom panel in the middle, just to the right of the word
Oh
balloon?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, he does that several times, which to me is more like, almost like Mother Nature herself, overlooking these women.
Yeah.
So again, best work of Gene Ha's career in my mind. It's not even close. Um, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I can only imagine what Nicola's art is going to look like.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's.
Great series.
I mean, I can't see DC not greenlighting another 3 issues of this. It's so good.
One of the things that one of the just as a side comment, one of the things that I find is a missed opportunity is that if there had been just, I think, better synchronicity between the trial of the Amazons and this series. I know this is a series that's Black Label and technically in its own continuity, but with this sixth tribe of Amazons and Hippolyta forming the seventh tribe of Amazons, we have three tribe of Amazons in the mainstream DC universe. It would have been nice to have seen maybe some callbacks or some history, some of this Historia, some of these hints reflected in the mainstream Wonder Woman title. That's just me. I just, I wish there would have been a little bit more editorial cohesion there, just for something for the fans. But I know that's just maybe expecting a little bit too much. But I think that Historia is something that I really do think it's going to be something that future writers at DC writing Wonder Woman, they're going to take it and they're going to go with it and they're going to build on it because Kelly, so much has been Kelly Sue DeConnick, so much that she's written here can be expanded upon in so many myriad of different wonderful ways that if DC doesn't take advantage of it, they're insane.
Yeah, they very well might be if they don't greenlight more of this. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. So that's going to do it for the individual episodes or issues, rather. Everybody, don't forget there is that Earth Prime Batwoman #1 that ties into the TV show, and then if you didn't read the Flashpoint Batman miniseries the first time around, all 3 issues are collected in one issue. It's called Flashpoint Batman Night of Vengeance #1. And we do have some collections. Robin Volume 1, the Lazarus Tournament, has a trade. So we were talking about, volumes or seasons of Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad Bad Blood trade paperback. That's the Tom Taylor, Daniel Sampere version of Suicide Squad. That has a trade paperback coming out today. Also, the 4 issues of the Shazam mini, Shazam to Hell and Back trade paperback, where Shazam and Dane go to hell, written by Tim Sheridan. That collection is out today. And then Mr. Miracle, The Source of Freedom, gets a hardcover. And I apologize that I haven't been able to have Brandon Easton on. We keep circling. He's just super busy, but I wanted to have him on to drop that interview the same day the hardcover came out, but it just didn't work out. But anyway, Rocky and I were both really surprised how great that series was. Shiloh Norman, Mr. Miracle, he's not what I think of when I think Mr. Miracle. I think Scott Free, but we were both really impressed with what Brandon Easton did there. So anyway, any other episodes you got coming up this week, Rocky, that you want to tease?
I don't know. At this point, no, I'm still pretty busy at work. I wish there was. I might do a rant and rave video. I might dive in a little deeper with Historia. I'll have to reread it again, and I've enjoyed it, and we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna say probably no, just to be safe. What about you? You got any interviews coming out?
Yeah, there's one that dropped yesterday with David Walker about his current Zoop campaign. I have any number of people that I talked to at WonderCon that should be coming on soon. Also, I'm going to be talking to Kevin Scott. That'll drop later this week, probably on Thursday, about Titans United, as well as his series that's returning from Vault called Shadow Service. So that's coming up as well. And then we should be getting back in the swing of things on the Spawn Daily. Kind of have fallen off that a little bit with all the traveling I've been doing, and I do have travel for the day job coming up as well, so got to do that. And then we have to figure out a time to review the last issue of Clear, which was so good, so good. So we'll try to make that happen sometime in the next couple of weeks. So again, everybody, we
can probably do that.
Appreciate you listening as always. Don't forget to head over to YouTube if you're listening to the audio only. Search for Rocky's channel. It's Comic Space Boom ! Give this video a like, ring the notification bell, and subscribe so you know when new stuff comes out. Conversely, if you're checking us out on YouTube or found us over there, or if you found me at WonderCon, I gave away a ton of free trades and signed stuff, including a Blu-ray DVD of the Captain Marvel movie. It was signed by Kelly Sue DeConnick. Speak of the devil. Anyway, I gave a bunch of stuff and lanyards and all that. And so if you're listening for the first time because you met me at WonderCon, please go and subscribe. Go to your favorite podcast platform on your smart device or your favorite podcasting app on your smart device and just subscribe. All that, following Rocky's channel, subscribing to me, all that stuff increases our footprint, which helps us get more access to talk about more comics and have more creators on and that sort of thing. So we really appreciate the support, everybody. We wouldn't do it without you, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.